On the 10th of February 2015, the Aam Aadmi Party's political symbol, the broom, swept all that was before it in the National Capital Territory of Delhi. And at that point had decimated the BJP and the Congress's strength in that state. 7 years and 1 month to that day, the Aam Aadmi Party has achieved a politically far more significant victory in a much larger state, that of Punjab, that comes 5 years after the AAP's first attempt at gaining power in the state, which had fallen significantly short. To understand what's led to the sweeping mandate for the Aam Aadmi Party, we have with us veteran journalist Vipin Pubby, who's over decades studied the political activity in Punjab. Mr. Pubby, thank you so much for joining us. The preliminary question, what's led to such a resounding mandate? And before the exit polls that indicated such a strong performance, before that, was there a sense of, you got a sense that there was a momentum in their favor, but a groundswell of to this magnitude, was that visible?
Thanks, Kaushik. No, you're very right. And before the election, it was very clear that Aam Aadmi Party is the leading party, that it is ahead of the pack. But very few actually believe that the sweep will be such huge. And therefore, it's a very momentous election where all the old guards have been, sidelined. They've been overboard, to say. The two generations of Akalis, Singh Badal, who was at age of 94, he's never lost an election. I think he has fought at least 12 to 13 elections. And he had never lost. And now this time, at the age of 94, he lost his election.
I want to get to each of those leaders one by one. Yeah. Before I do, because I want your detail on that. But before that, your sense of how the AAP structured this and stitched this mandate together.
Yes, Aam Aadmi Party, you see, came as a breath of fresh air. Even last time, I must say, in 2017, it had a lot of support. But there were a few blunders which the party committed, and they have learned their lessons. And this they did it. Within 5 years, they have done it. The most important was that in 2017, they did not declare a CM candidate. Okay. And many people in Punjab thought, who were even supporters of Aam Aadmi Party, that Mr. Kejriwal might himself come and become the chief minister. They had no issue whether he was a Hindu or Sikh or no. The problem was an outsider. So they, Punjabis are particularly, they would like to be ruled by themselves. And that was one major blunder they committed last time, which this time they've rectified, and they announced one man as the chief minister candidate. Also, last time they were seen to be supping with the militants, with the
There were attempts made this time as well by Kumar Vishwas and things like that. So how were they able to ward it off this time?
I don't think that held much water, because this time they had not actually met anyone, and Kumar Vishwas' allegations were very thin. And they had never supported or never said anything in favor of extremism or militancy. So I don't think anybody in Punjab believed what Kumar Vishwas said. So that was just not possible. So these two lessons they took, and people actually wanted a change, and they were desperate to it, because they had tried and tested these two parties for over 30 years. And every time they would change the seats and nothing will happen. And the situation is so bad that Punjab's economy had gone down tremendously. One of the most indebted state it had become. There is no industry had come in the state for the last 15, 20 years, despite that the militancy has been over for about 30 years.
25, 30 years, exactly.
But still, after the militancy got over, even then we have not been able to attract any industry. And the huge unemployment and corruption certainly was there, and mining mafias and drugs. All these problems were there. But one of the major contributory factors here, which I would like to bring in, is that why the victory is so huge is partly the Congress's responsibility.
I was going to get to that. How much of this is the Congress's self-goal, and how much of this is a vote for change that would have swept away, even if the Congress had not made the mistakes? So I wanted your sense of the balance of that.
Yes. Congress had been scoring several self-goals. In fact, the first one they did was the removal of Captain Amarinder Singh and bringing in Navjot Singh Siddhu. To be very frank, the sense at that time was that Captain Amarinder Singh government was not doing too well, but it wasn't doing too badly also. The issue of sacrilegious wasn't there till Navjot Sidhu brought it up again. So there was nothing really going too much against the government. And at the same time, Shiromani Akali Dal and BJP, the main rivals, had split. So Akalis would not have got the urban seats or urban votes, and BJP would not have got the rural votes. So Congress was sitting pretty, and Aam Aadmi Party was in disarray. It was in a state of disarray because not 20 MLAs last time, 11 of them had left.
Had quit, exactly.
And so had several other top leaders. In fact, the Aam Aadmi Party did not build up the local leadership again this time. And there were very few people who could name 4 or 5 Aam Aadmi Party leaders in India. That was the situation. But I think what weighed in favor of Aam Aadmi Party was that acute anger at all the drama that had been going on in the last 5-6 months. Particularly, I think the major damage has been done by Navjot Singh Sidhu himself. Almost every day, he would be coming out with statements, dragging down his own government.
That's right. And a chief minister that on the day that the chief minister was chosen, he made it look like it was his man that was being put there.
Exactly. He would handhold him and take him all
along. I remember that.
Photographs of his standing along an aircraft in the line of duty. And he thought that he will, manipulate him. After all, he is not very well known and was not in the limelight much. But he was mistaken. And one was that he rejected several other candidates who were, who were in the contention to become the chief minister because they thought he was his rival. He thought Channi is quite a simple kind of a man and that he will be able to manage him. But he did not realize that he's a Dalit, and Congress was started making it, as an achievement,
as a virtue out of a necessity,
that they have made a Dalit chief minister. So there was no way that they could have said that Channi will not be the chief minister in case they come to power. That would have really exposed them very much. So they could not have done it. Despite that, our Navjot Sidhu kept on his attacks on the Channi government. Before that, he had attacked severely Amarinder also. And in the process, something very interesting happened. And that is that, the entire Congress campaign was that, sorry, we could not do much in the last 4.5 years. We did not do much. But in these 5-6 months, whatever promises we are making you, we will do. Fulfill it if we are returned to power. Now that was very strange. You're criticizing your own government, saying we did not.
Exactly, and it's not like Captain Amarinder Singh left with a block of MLAs that you could say there's a complete reboot of the government, right? So much of the rest of the party architecture had stayed the same.
The same, and the same kind of ministers and every kind of a person. They were all the same team, and still saying that repeatedly that we could not do much in the first 4.5 years. So it was, hitting their own feet with a sickle, and they really damaged themselves severely because people didn't believe that. Why did you take 4.5 years to realize that you are not doing anything? So that argument was very strange, and that people were, actually wondering why, this repeated attack is being made on Captain Amarinder Singh, and then later on Channi. And then their fight broke about who will be the chief ministerial candidate, and they had to hold a kind of a poll, and then Rahul Gandhi had to
intervene.
Announce his name. But the point is, they rocked their own boat.
Interesting.
I still believe they wouldn't have done that badly as they did now if Captain Amarinder Singh was allowed to carry on, at least till the election. They could have changed him after the election if they wanted. But once they rocked their own boat, it became very, very difficult then to that credibility.
So the fact that the Congress did this to itself, the Akali Dal was seen as part of an old establishment that in its two terms in power between 2002 2012, I beg your pardon, between 2007 2017, hadn't been able to regain popularity in opposition. What's resulted as a result is something you mentioned right at the top. The fact that Prakash Singh Badal has lost, Sukhbir Badal has lost, Bibi Jagir Kaur has lost. Majithia has lost. From the Congress, you have Chief Minister Channi losing from 2 seats, you have Navjot Singh Sidhu losing. An entire generation of Punjab's leaders who've been around in Mr. Sidhu was in the BJP earlier, of the 2 or 3 axes of Punjab's power have all been moved out in this sweep of the AAP. When it forms this government and occupies a dominant share of that assembly, how does it reboot what else is around it? What else comes up in opposition to the AAP now that all these people have lost this election?
Absolutely. All the three former chief ministers have lost. Major top leaders of the government have lost. Akali leaders have lost. So it's actually a very momentous election. That's why I said that, a complete kind of a change, complete reboot of Punjab politics. The people who are dominating this for the last 35, 40 years, they're all, and it's a fresh start for it. And another interesting thing is, not even many journalists will be able to count more than 10 names,
MLS.
those who have come in. Very, very little known name. For instance, the person who defeated Channi in one of the constituencies is an employee of a mobile shop at a mobile shop. So very, very common kind of person. Not many people know about it. So I think people wanted a complete change from whatever had been happening in the last 30, 40 years. And that's what they have got it. And I think now a new breed of leadership will come up. Because there is going to be churning within the Congress and within the Akalis as well, because there was a lot of resentment building up against Badals, just on together. In fact, there were 5, 6 splinter groups had come up, and they had made their own Akali Dals. Similarly, in Congress, a lot of people, including Manish Tiwari, who was considered to be very big loyalist of Sonia Gandhi and all that, he had been coming out with statements against the Congress, and so was Sunil Jakhar. So all these people now, I think there is going to be a bit of churning. A set of new leadership is bound to come up. It will take some time, but it will, I think the old leaders, I think, will have to say goodbye to politics in Punjab.
That's interesting, because I want to borrow from a phrase Prime Minister Modi had previewed in that no confidence motion that happened in Parliament in July 2018, if I remember right. And that phrase that he used going into the 2019 elections, along with the post-Pulwama effect that he got, is that, I don't know if you remember that phrase that he used of Namdar and Kamdar. I'm wondering whether the AAP in its own subtle way did the same, saying that the Raja of Patiala, or those that have run the state as the Badals and have been in the establishment, those that have been in power in the SGPC, all of these are pillars of power in this state. We come here as people who work and ask you to tuck them out. Was there that matrix that the Prime Minister is so successful at? Did the AAP in its own way make similar us and them correlations for the public?
Yes, Kaushik. In fact, they sent out very subtle messages, and the subtle messages were that they are common people, that they have no other stake, they are all clean people, and these people, in other parties, the leaders have become feudal in their own ways. Whether it was Captain Amarinder Singh and Raninder, his son, or Praneeth Kaur, his wife, was also an MP. And similarly, on the Badal side, it was Prakash Singh Badal was there, then Harsimrat was a minister at the center. So Majithia, Harsimrat's brother, was a they had become personality-centric, parties, and that has been causing a lot of damage to their prestige and also to their impression among the common people, that others were not getting chance. So the AAP ran this campaign very subtly, saying that they are common people, we are common people, we have no stakes, and we will provide you clean government as we had done. And there was a perception in Punjab that, I don't know whether how much they have done in Delhi, but the perception was, yes, at least these people are sincere. They have done something. They have seen schools, photographs of schools and videos of government schools brightened up, and doles being given and all that, and free health facility, mohalla clinics and all that. So they had all heard about it, which in Punjab you have not heard for the last 35, 40 years.
My final question to you, as the BJP as well as what is left of the Congress in its pockets of whatever strength it might have elsewhere in the country, may look on this result slightly warily and try to understand what did Kejriwal get right in 2022 against what he pitched in 2017, which you in part answered earlier, and that switch from what that message was, and whether that is the prototype of what he will understand how to take to other states, where I think the AAP spokesperson Raghav Chadha has made very clear that it intends to move out as the replacement from the Congress as and where it can, and put in place a ground structure that will help over time gain political power in those states. So in that understanding of what worked in the switch in between 5 years, because there have been other states where the AAP right off the bat in 2013 and 14 had gone to different states, fought a few elections, failed in a number of Lok Sabha elections in 2014. In Goa now has 2 seats. The project of the AAP to build out elsewhere how was this structured in a way that perhaps can be tailored for another state? Any lessons that the AAP's opponents can observe and take away from today?
Yes, Aam Aadmi Party started off its campaign, basically, criticizing the old leadership, the old guard everywhere, and that's what is happening. Maybe in the other two states which are left with Congress now, just two other states are left. So now Aam Aadmi Party is trying to fill up that vacuum which is being created by Congress, particularly the Congress leadership. I would like to point out one important thing, which is the most important takeaway as far as I think from Punjab, is this was the first independent decision taken by the Gandhi brothers
siblings. Yes.
And after the death of what's his name, Ahmed Patel. Ahmed Patel was secretary, a very powerful one, and he had Sonia Gandhi's ears. So he had been keeping the Congress together and taking very most important decisions about the Congress. He passed away in November last year. And since then, they haven't had a good counsel for Sonia Gandhi or for the party high command. And this is the first time that these siblings took an independent decision, overriding Sonia Gandhi. Sonia Gandhi's husband Rajiv was a close classmate of Vipin. In fact, after their marriage, they had come and stayed with him. So they had a very good relationship. But overrode their mother and came under the influence of Navjot Singh Siddhu that he is going to change Punjab and that he will do. So it is the first important independent decisions.
So that's interesting you say that, because then there are markers into perhaps Haryana, there are markers into Himachal Pradesh, there are markers into then perhaps those three areas where in government or not the Congress has a presence, that it might not need to look at how whether if some similar mistakes are made in those states, whether there is now a party ready to move in and take its space. Those will be interesting things to watch in the coming months and years. We're going to have to wrap up here, Mr. Pubby, as we continue to get BloombergQuint readers a state-by-state analysis of today's election results. Thank you very much for making time, and thank you for watching this.
Thank you.